Welcome to another episode of Out Loud and Laughing. Get ready. It's Bryan and Jon, two gay cousins having big talks and even bigger laughs. Join us. Let's see what they're up to. It's Out Loud and Laughing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Out Loud and Laughing. I'm Jon.
And I'm Bryan.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Welcome to my home.
I'm so happy to be here.
I know. I was going to say, we are actually in my house doing this recording together. It's kind of exciting.
It's kind of cold.
It's kind of cold. We are lapping a negative degree weather here in New Jersey.
Maplewood.
No, honestly, this week I woke up and it was 4 degrees. And then
four.
1, 4 degree, 1 digit, 4 degrees, and I looked on my phone and it showed it feels like -6.
No. So Bryan lives in New York. I live in Florida. We've kind of lived a lot of places: LA, San Francisco, Miami, New York. We've got the corners of the country covered. But currently in Florida, where it is currently 40 degrees, 40.
Oh yeah. But that's cold for Florida.
It's very cold for Florida.
You know?
Listen, we are used to sunshine and sand and Republicans. And so, should be really hot.
All the things you want to run from.
Oh my God, all the things you want to run from. You will not be hearing those topics here.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So today, let's see, what do we want to talk about? I was thinking that we should give everyone a little bit of background of our kind of family. I know in our first episode we talked about we're cousins and we gave a little background on that, but I think it's important to walk through that, maybe we're a little bit more than cousins.
Yeah.
And our story kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Our friends know this. It's actually become through our upbringing, sort of this connecting red thread between who we are and how we're related. So I'll just give you sort of the 30,000 foot view of what that looks like, essentially, and then we'll dive deep. Deep. So
it gets interesting.
It does. So my mom and his mom are sisters.
Okay, so my mom is the older sister, his mom's the younger sister.
Yep.
And then my dad and his dad are brothers.
Ironically, my dad's the younger brother.
And my dad's the older brother. So, 2 brothers met 2 sisters.
Yes.
And they fell in love. Thankfully, it was there was no overlap.
There was no overlap, yeah.
That we know of.
Yet.
And so 2 brothers married 2 sisters.
That would make us more of a family wreath instead of a family tree. So
yeah,
we're still figuring that out.
We're kind of like a family bush. So it kind of starts, ends, and wraps around. But so I think
it's good.
In DNA, kind of hereditary, we're more brothers than we are cousins.
Yeah, we're not double helix. We're more a full corkscrew.
Yeah,
big old. Well, I think a helix is a corkscrew, but you follow.
Yes. And so if you think about your cousins, your cousins typically have the same grandparents on one side, but then that cousin has a whole different experience and family on the other side, right? A different grandparent that you don't share with your
different
cousin.
Aunts and uncles.
Yeah, and so since we share both the same dads and moms, we literally have the same grandparents and the same cousins on both sides.
Which makes for, drumroll please, really good conversations.
Or a lot of healing.
Yeah, well, very, very expensive therapy. But
so I think the reason why Jon and I might be closer than the normal cousin is likely because we have literally a lot of the shared experiences from birth.
Well, there's a lot there too, right? So Not only do we have a lot of the shared experiences, we've lived with the exception to adulthood and sort of starting around college, I would say for the first nearly 2 decades of our life, we lived very, very close to one another.
Yeah. We grew up about 3 blocks away from each other. So we grew up in Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
We lived, again, probably a 30-second to 1-minute drive away from each other. And so we kind of grew up, I don't know, practically living together.
Honestly, though, we've talked about this too before, where we believe that, our mom's raising us and our dad's working so much. We have siblings as well, so we'll sort of go into that. I have an older sister. Bryan has an older brother. So there was 4 of us total, and so the 2 moms sort of relying on one another with the dads being at work so often to help raise us, right? Put us in the same room a lot of the times, or outside. Really, they did not want us in the house. They put us in the same room, metaphorically speaking, for a lot of our life.
Yeah, so I think just to back up just a little bit, so as much as we're close, our dads are very close, and so they spent a lot of their kind of young career building things together. So they had a construction company for a while. They worked at one of the other same companies, I forget, RC Cola.
Oh yeah,
which was a thing a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why we talk about our dads being absent is not because they were absent. They were definitely a part of our lives, but they would leave the house at like literally 4 or 5 in the morning to go to work and then not get home until sometimes like 9 or 10
really
p.m.
late night.
So really our moms were left to kind of raise 4 children on their own. And for anyone that's listening that might have children, I have children. Yep. It's hard on your own. So I think our moms leaned on each other to just bring us all together and truly like raise all 4 of us as a unit.
And that's a good point. I mean, I think a lot of people might identify similar relationships with their cousins, possibly like as close to like being, siblings more than cousins. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that part is unique to a lot of people. I do think that the relationships, the genetic relationship is really, really interesting. But I only bring that up to say that underscored sort of a lot of our relationship growing up, seeing that our parents were both relatives of each other. Imagine if you have a sibling, imagine being their in-law as well. Our moms are sisters and sisters-in-law, right?
Yeah, true.
So that point in and of itself, and seeing those relationships, in my opinion, sort of like made it feel like this was always going to be inseparable to some degree.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it opened up a lot for no one was ever safe.
Ooh, so if you think on that. This is getting good.
So if you think about like, there have been times where like our moms were in a situation like they were fighting or our dads were fighting. It's hard for my mom to like turn to John's dad for help when he's going to support his wife, who's my mom's sister. So like it was very hard to find backing. And so what would sometimes happen with a fight is it would go on for a while because we were puking, so stubborn is our baseline. Yeah. But yeah, it was weird because whose side do you take? Take your wife's side? Do you take your brother's side? Do you take your sister? Like there was never a right answer. And so as a result of that, there was always just like this and it still exists today, like this underlying tension in the family. It's very interesting dynamic.
That's a good point. I mean, without getting into specifics, there was a time in our lives where our family did get into confrontation. One, I think that lasted so long that I actually don't have context now that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
This is actually real. It's all real, but I mean, I've never even brought this up to you, where I don't remember how many years it was. It felt like a really long time where, let me bring you guys up to speed, where our parents actually were in conflict, and it got to the point where they didn't even want to see each other. But the dads, I believe, I don't remember it all verbatim.
It was your dad and my mom, and we can get into the details. But there was issues with our dad's parents, with our mothers. My mom
specifically grandmother.
My mom being more vocal, so there was an issue with tension between John's dad and my mom. And so what was interesting, was that our moms still needed to lean on each other. And so there were many times where we would just get dropped off at John's house, but my mom would just drop us off and not get out of the car.
It was awkward for everybody.
It was awkward, but I only think it lasted about a year.
It felt longer. That's what I was thinking when I was just mentioning it, where it may have been like in semantics just a year, but it felt like a long time. Maybe it was because every interaction felt like it was so taboo and we weren't supposed to talk about it, especially in my house.
Well, we also didn't really know what was happening.
Fair enough.
Because we were young. We were probably like 10 or 11.
10 or 11.
So I think it's interesting because I'm sure a lot of listeners, whoever is listening, has their own kind of family drama and can relate to that tension. I just think it was interesting for us because, again, our moms and our dads were brothers, and so there was just so many good shared experiences. We should probably deep dive into some of those because it definitely was more good than bad, but Absolutely. The bad ones were just as equal because, You know?
Yeah, I think it's really important to dive into the more exciting stuff, which, I think we will get into right now. It's a great segue. I don't want to, I don't want it to just feel sugar-coated that this has been I think every relationship has its ups and downs, and I think we can share those in ours as well. But speaking of some of the more exciting things, what have been some of your favorite?
No, I think there was a lot of good things growing up together.
Yeah.
I think we grew up, we were born in the 80s babies, so we were pre-tech, especially
pre-in-home computer, pre-internet.
Yes, we were word processor, so no games.
I don't even know that word processor is even a word.
It was probably taken out of the dictionary.
It was,
and if it wasn't, it should.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time playing, but what's
using
interesting,
our imagination.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think when we look back and I reflect back on our childhood, it's interesting because I don't remember having friends growing up, right? So I remember having friends at school because we needed to have people to hang out with or talk to in our classes. But I remember on the weekends and stuff, I wasn't going to friends' houses and hanging out with them. My friendships were with you and your sister. So I feel it was always us four. And so I think there was a lot of, to your point, we were very creative. We played a lot of games together. There was one girl, 3 boys, but 2, in closet. So we did a lot of Barbie, a lot of dress up. We did all those really fun things together. And so those were really good memories. But I think some of the best memories, which we can definitely deep dive into, and I would love to, is camping.
So outdoors a lot. We spent a lot of time. We were... if I can just sidebar, that we were very lower class.
We didn't make a lot of money.
Our parents didn't make a lot of money, and so that just led for us to do a lot of activities. Not to say that they didn't extend themselves often. They took us to some great vacations, but the majority of them were outside camping.
Yeah, we did a lot of camping growing up. Mm-hmm. KOA was our best friend.
Did you know that that's hyper Republican now?
Is it?
I didn't know about this when we were younger.
Is RVing a Republican thing now?
The outdoors is kind of owned by the Republicans.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They own everything.
So I think we literally camp all the time because it was the cheapest way to vacation. And so we would get in the car, we would drive to a campsite, and we would just camp. And it'd be us 4.
Lots of holidays on the road. Easter camping, Christmas camping.
All the time.
Summertime, yeah.
So we were always camping. And so another thing we can dive into, but we both had pop-up campers where it was a block, and then when you got there, you took the beds out, and you raised it. And so what was interesting is he had one, and I had one that was identical, because our dads always compete with each other.
They have the same everything.
They have to outdo each other, yes. So John's camper might have this feature, our camper had this feature, and it was always just mine can be better. Mm-hmm. Sidebar, but we camped, and so we would just pop up our campers, and so all you could do while camping was just play outside, and so we just... made up our own.
You know what makes me remember? Do you remember that one time that we were? I don't remember the name of the campsite, but we went fishing off that dock, and we would. Are you
gonna call it fishing?
That was not fishing. Let me tell you how the Cubans did it, or the Cuban kids did it. We had a roll of fishing wire that we cut into strings
because we couldn't afford a fishing pole.
We did have hooks. I don't know where they got those from. They must have stole them.
A can of corn.
And a can of corn. And we laid off the dock, tummies down, heads looking into the water, dropping string with little bits of corn, and just yanking these, I couldn't tell you what kind of fish they were. Could you? No, I don't know fish.
It was pond fish.
Yeah, pond, little tiny ones. But then we put them in
a bucket.
Buckets.
Yeah.
Straight up sand building buckets. Buckets that you would use to go to the beach with.
We put water in the bucket, so they stayed alive.
They were alive. I mean, barely.
Right. So we put water in them.
But the funniest part was...
that we were obsessed with...
Saved by the Bell
Saved by the Bell for some reason. And so we just kept naming all of them the Saved by the Bell characters.
Kelly, Screech, Lisa, Zach. Now, there were rules, as were with many of our games.
I don't remember this.
The Zach was the biggest fish.
Ah.
And every time we got the biggest one, we would call him Zach or throw one back.
I remember... That's interesting, because I remember just having a bucket full of fish with 6 Zachs, 4 Kellys, 2 Lisas, and a Jessie. So I remember a combo pack.
I'm gonna go with that. My memory is great, but I don't remember that fact, but I think that's funny.
Yes, I think that's a really good memory. And I also think the other thing that we used to do is at night, there's so much you can do. So as our parents would make dinner for us, we would just go and find a spot and create a show.
Oh, we were big producers.
We were really good at variety shows.
So, like magic and dancing, we would make our like brothers, your brother and my sisters, sort of like we'd pull them in on the act. I think that we were always
the headliner.
We're the headliner. As you can tell, they are nowhere to be found. Kaylin, can you fix the lighting? Thanks. Just kidding. Nobody's here. It's literally just us. No, but you're right. Shows, and then do you remember Disney Magazine?
Like the actual one or the one we were creating?
So there was Disney Magazine, produced by Disney, very, very good, all color print, nice paper. And then there was ours that we did when we were younger.
And then there was ours.
Again, pre-computer, to bring us back to that, where we hand drew everything, hand wrote, did all of our own research. Yeah. Everybody had a role. I mean, it just goes to show sort of a lot. I mean, the things that you did with your sibling growing up, or if you had a cousin that was like a sibling, that was Bryan and I's relationship. I mean,
it's just there's so many memories that we have from that. And so I think to wrap this up, like because we'll give you guys more insight on a lot of these stories, but I think it's just important before you deep dive, if you are enjoying our content, please follow us. Yeah. But it's just more understanding that like we're so much closer than just cousins and more than just the DNA side of things. We just our shared experiences growing up so close together.
I mean, some of the elephants in the room here, we're both creative. That really helped harness our relationship. We're both gay. That was a big one. We'll probably do a whole episode on coming out of the closet and sort of how we were there for one another and kind of how we weren't there for one another, because we did have our own. We are individuals. We had our own unique stories as well. And then that we are both like digital creators. You know, Bryan is on a business side, I'm on a creative side, and so we both sort of straddle the same space. So I think just generally speaking, lots of things.
Fun journey. We're here for it.
We are here for it.
We are not cousins. We are brothers.
We are so happy that you joined us today.
Yes.
And we are so looking forward for you to come back and visit us again. We encourage you to click all the things.
Subscribe, follow, comment, ask us a question.
Ask us questions. We really want to engage with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Until next time.
Chat soon.
Yep.
Bye.